International, interdenominational, Wesley Biblical Seminary, Jackson, Mississippi. Now's the time for you to apply at WBS, Biblical and Theological Studies, with a deep commitment to the authority of Scripture. Our online and on-campus graduate programs will give you the laser-like focus for ministry that you need. Wesley Biblical Seminary. Apply today. Preach the Word, reach the world. WBS.edu.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be His ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, joined by the full J Squared contingent. Mr. Jeff Reed is on my left. You took off your blanket. I didn't notice that just now. Mr. Jason Tross is on my right. Marty Sparks lighting up the dark from the screening room, and you are locked in with us. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's program. I want to start off the program in this segment first. I have to do this because I got word that in Denham Springs, Louisiana, there's a pretty significant contingent of people that like to enjoy the Hamilton Corner. So I just want to say a hearty good evening to you in Denham Springs, of course, to all of the Hamilton Corner audience, but specifically in Denham Springs, one particular person, Miss Tony. You know who you are. You happen to run into the best friend of one of my family members. And so I heard about that, and so I just wanted to tell you, thank you for listening to the program as well, Miss Tony. And then also, I'm pretty sure a lot of you who, if you listen to the program, you heard that I had a hot date last night with my wife. So I'm sure some of you guys are wanting to know how that went. And I have to tell you, man, that was such an enjoyable experience. I can't tell everybody where I went because, they got some crazy folks out here. I don't want them showing up to where I frequent, heckling me, because I don't know if y'all saw those videos, but the Hamiltons go to the range. So I don't want to have to plaka. So I just keep it to myself where we were. But, man, what an enjoyable time. We were able to take a long, long drive and just to talk, my wife and I, which is so enjoyable, such a pleasurable experience, man. If y'all don't know it yet, I'm married to the greatest woman in the world. I'm sure you might have your own opinions, but hey, this is America. You have the right to be wrong. and let me say to all of to the brothers out there who are privileged to have a wife, man, don't forget to take your wife out on a date and go out with your wives, man. Enjoy your wife. Spend time with her. Take time. There's something that with our family makeup, not too many people we trust our children with. Let me just tell you like it is. We don't leave our children with too many people. So having the opportunity to do that, man, we took full advantage of it. And it was just a great, great time. And I'm telling you, and this is nothing new. This is not me offering some secret knowledge or wisdom or whatever. But take the time to date your wife. Take your wife out. Spend time with her. Plan it. I was talking to a friend of mine who was saying sometimes you don't even realize it, but the smallest things go the furthest distance. The smallest things go the furthest distance. And for those of you who are listening to me, you're not yet married. Well, let me put you on some game real quick. Spend time with your wife after you're married. If you have the opportunity to do so without the children, do it. Because it'll be great for you and it'll be great for her. So that's all I can tell you. But I might catch me. I'm a little sleepy this morning because we stayed out past our curfew last night. Our midweek curfew. But it was an enjoyable time. Praise God. Well, we're going to begin the program as we always do, by turning to the Word of God. And this is by way of reminder, nothing new, but nevertheless critically important. Matthew chapter 28, verses 16 through 20. Just want to offer, I feel like this is like a public service announcement. You know, you get that weird tone. This is a public service announcement. That's how I feel with this. Matthew 28. Yeah, man. Keep that light on. Eddie's on Facebook saying, yeah, keep the light on. Keep the light on in the marriages. Keep the light on. I'm telling you, man. Marriage is wonderful if we pursue it God's way. I like that, Eddie. Keep the light on. I'm going to start saying that myself. Thank you, Eddie. Eddie, good with the assist. Through the live, I'm going to dunk that thing. I like it, Eddie. Matthew 28, verses 16 through 20. Here we go. This is Jesus in resurrected form. So he's already been crucified. Now he's resurrected. So Jesus is in resurrected form having this conversation. You'll note the Bible here tells us that it's 11 disciples, not 12, because, you know, Judas is no longer among them. All right. Verse 16. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe or to obey all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. I wanted to just take a few moments this evening to remind us all that the Great Commission is the mission, that we never misconstrue what is the primary mission. I've said before that I engage civically and politically because I'm aware of the threat that government poses to the church's ability to freely execute the Great Commission. That is the primary and chief reason for my engagement civically. But don't get it twisted. Civic engagement in and of itself is not the goal. It is not the goal. The goal is to execute the Great Commission. Now, here we have, as the Bible tells us, 11 of Jesus' disciples who are witnessing the resurrected Christ before their very eyes, the full culmination of what he had preached to them for 3 years while being alive. And then the Bible tells us, while they are witnessing the resurrected Christ before their very eyes, it tells us in verse 17, even some of those guys doubted. The Bible is giving us, the Lord is giving us through his word, a snapshot into the components of making disciples. You have, out of the 11 remaining apostles, frankly, who walked with Jesus for 3 years, witnessed his miracles, sat under his teaching, heard his teaching, watched his manner of living, all of those things. Yet still, as they are witnessing the resurrected Christ, some of them are still doubting. Is that not amazing? Why am I emphasizing that as the way that I am? I am emphasizing that because the unfortunate reality is, in modern times, particularly in our country, in many places, not in all places, but in many places, we have lost the understanding of what it takes actually to make disciples. The most critical, and I say this all the time, the most critical component of discipleship formation is time. Discipleship takes time. It takes time. It takes time. In many places, we have misconstrued discipleship formation with something that is nothing more than an introduction to church culture. I call that churchianity. You know, how do you act in a gathering of people who are professing to be worshiping Jesus? Folks, that is not discipleship. That is not discipleship. Discipleship requires us, first of all, if we are going to be engaged in the process of making disciples, we have to be disciples ourselves. We have to be disciples first. Making disciples include the euangelion, the proclamation of the gospel. It includes evangelism. Every Christ follower is called to engage in the ministry of evangelism. Now, we may not all, be some name and lights type evangelists, but we all are called to evangelize. Every Christ follower. We likewise are called by God to play our part in the execution of the Great Commission. Now, understanding that one of the most foremost components of discipleship making is time. In order to make disciples, there must be a combination of what I describe as lecture and lab. The best example that we have for discipleship making is Jesus Christ himself. And if you notice what Jesus did, he didn't say, hey, let's come to church services. It included gathering of the saints for worship, but that wasn't the exclusive engagement for discipleship. No, what Jesus did is that he invited his disciples to opportunities to hear his teachings. I refer to that part as lecture. Discipleship, disciple making requires consistent teaching of the word of God. But disciple making also requires the lab component, lecture and lab. How it includes a conveying, a demonstrating, and an inviting of others to see, how do Christ followers live this Christ following life in an everyday scenario? One of the foremost ways that this occurs is in a one-on-one interaction and relationship. One of the things that I endeavor to do, especially as God gives me the opportunity to spend time with young men, is that I invite them into my home. Spend time on a regular basis. How does a Christ follower handle it when you're on the road traveling somewhere and you have a tire blow out? How does a Christ follower handle a circumstance when you're out and about living your life and you have an uncomfortable or a difficult encounter? This is a part of the discipleship making process. This is why you may not even recognize it, but this is why Satan fights so hard to keep believers from knowing one another on a personal level. Because when we don't know one another, it's easy to put on church face. It's easy to put on this performance. But it's hard to perform when the person you're sitting next to knows you. Say, wait a minute, that's a show. You don't act like that when you're at home. We have to get to the place to where there is a commitment to making disciples. I was talking yesterday about the importance of churches making an investment in making disciples of younger generations. It's not limited to younger generations. We have got to get past this superficial church attendance and get back to home plate. The Great Commission is the mission. The best way to make disciples is by inviting young believers, new converts, assuming they're converted after having received the gospel, into your intimate proximity, demonstrating to them your manner of living, not just your church attendance. How do you conduct yourself when you go to the gym? How do you handle yourself? I remember I had a person ask me, man, do Christian men have to look at women walking by? I said, no. You want to know why they asked me that question? Because all they had seen is Christian men who watch women walking by. We have to get we have to get beyond the superficial churchianity and get back to Christ following. From intimate proximity, how do we do life? Hey, Abe, you talking about you went out on a date with your wife. How did that happen? Folks, this is a part of discipleship. How did you know that it was time to do so? You know, the Bible talks about the responsibility of husbands dealing with our wives in an understanding manner so that our prayers are not hindered. Dealing with our wives in an understanding manner includes having effective communication, but it also requires us to understand our wives as to where they are in different ways. One of the first things I do, I tell guys, man, I pray for my wife. One of the things I pray for, I say, Lord, help me not to have blind spots, especially with my wife. If there's a need that she has, Lord, help me to understand that need and to fulfill and respond to that need. We have to get beyond superficial Christianity and get back to home base and get to the place to where from intimate proximity, we're able to demonstrate our manner of living and in that process, make disciples.
More proof abortion is not safe. I am Matt Staver with Freedom's Call. A new study just published revealed and confirmed abortion pills can cause serious harm. The research project used rats as subjects. The rats that had the pregnancies chemically terminated showed many negative behavioral and biological side effects. The study also found drug-induced abortion was much more dangerous than a miscarriage. Not surprisingly, the research also revealed that there were a lot of positive health benefits for the mother when the baby was carried to full term. The fact is, the chemical abortion drugs don't just kill babies, they are dangerous for mothers as well. Since December 2018, there have been 24 deaths in America from various abortion-inducing drugs. And that does not include medical emergencies such as hemorrhaging. Planned Parenthood intentionally misinforms women that chemical abortions are safe. They are not. Abortion harms women and kills children. Stay informed at Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
After the 62,000 Bibles given last week, our partnership with Truth for Youth has resulted in more than 1 million Bibles given to public school students across the country. Thank you. That means countless lives touched and souls saved.
And there was a page in Truth for Youth that showed me how to give my heart to Jesus. I just prayed and Jesus forgave me of my sins.
You can still get Bibles to share at truthforyouth.com. Thanks again for helping to share God's Word with Truth for Youth International and American Family Radio.
Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. The New York Times spent the last 2 years trying to destroy President Trump through the hoax of his supposed collusion with Russia. Now it has turned all of its guns to the issue of racism. Just like with the Russia hoax, they will find racism where it does not exist to convince gullible Americans that this nation is racist to its core. The Times is now trying to rewrite American history by saying our true founding was 400 years ago today, when the first slave ship landed at Jamestown. It's true that slavery was our nation's original sin, but while slavery is still practiced in the entire Muslim world, it has been made a crime in the entire Christian West. As Thomas Sowell said, the question is not why is there slavery, but what brought slavery to an end. What brought it to an end was biblical Christianity, and that's something to celebrate.
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 105 Central on American Family Radio.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
My son was kidnapped 8 weeks ago, and he wasn't taken by a drug cartel or a criminal organization. He was taken from my home in broad daylight by the state of Texas. How could this happen? These were the thoughts that were running through my mind when I watched this happen to my friends Ashley and Daniel a few weeks ago. I had to put myself in their shoes. How would I feel if this were my son being ripped from me? Drake is 4 years old and he's had a lot of medical needs, and his parents took him to Children's Medical Center in Dallas. One of the doctors from Children's Medical Center, who had never seen Drake, never spoken to him, never spoken to the parents, never given Drake any type of medical care, did a partial review of Drake's medical file and reported the family to Child Protective Services. The next day, CPS showed up at the family's house and left a business card on their door. CPS had also never met the family, never met Drake, and never spoken to a single doctor or other person who had any first-hand knowledge of any of Drake's medical conditions. All the same, CPS showed up at the family's house unannounced and without warning 2 weeks later with armed police officers and forcibly removed him from his home.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. What you just heard was a snippet from a video recounting the horrendous saga the Pardo family has faced. Daniel and Ashley Pardo had their 4-year-old son, Drake Pardo, removed from them by the Children's Protective Services Agency in Texas, in East Texas. It took me, when I first came across this story, I wanted to do a little investigation just to make sure I was understanding it myself. This is insane. Young Drake, the 4-year-old little boy, suffers with a tremendous amount of physical difficulty. He's had brain surgery. He has serious eating disorders. He's on the autism spectrum. And this all began back in April when Drake was hospitalized, which unfortunately has not been uncommon in his short life. And a doctor at the Children's Medical Center in Dallas, whom they had seen previously, refused to come and see Drake in the hospital. Apparently, there were recommendations that had been made concerning his feeding tube, and the family had questions about it and wanted to consider an alternative opinion concerning the feeding tube. So the doctor in Dallas refused to come and see him. So Daniel and Ashley Pardo filed a complaint with the hospital. And the hospital informed them that it would take 45 days for them to investigate the Pardo's complaint. Well, the 45 days lapsed, and guess what happens on day 46? CPS is knocking on the Pardo's door. Yes, folks, this is crazy. Initially, CPS left a card on the door. Then the Pardo's family attempted to communicate with CPS in the 2 weeks following that initial card being left on their door. Those 2 weeks passed, and the next thing you hear is knock on the door. CPS is outside of their door with the police to forcibly remove this little boy from their home. Now, the Pardos were quick enough to catch some of this exchange with a cell phone video. And I'm going to warn you now, this is heart-wrenching to hear. But what I'm going to play for you now is a snapshot of the terror that this family faced when a medical complaint resulted in CPS knocking on their door to take their child from them. It is clip number 3. Would you please play that, Jason?
Ask him to put it up to the window. Can you put the order up to the window so I can see it?
Okay, it's going to escalate if you don't open the door, guys.
Okay.
Let him get to draw their gun.
Okay. He's got paper.
Open the door, but stay at the threshold.
Don't go out. I got it videoing.
Make them show you the order.
See it? Step out.
We have an attorney. Have you contacted our attorney?
Yes, he just called me. He's aware of all of this.
He's aware of it.
Yes.
Okay.
We still have a right to see the
We
warrant.
have a right to see the
She does not have a copy of the order.
She won't let us see
Take
it.
a picture.
What do I need to do?
Let us see the order. You have to see the order. They have to show you the order.
They are. They're showing us the order.
Please show us the order.
They are. They're showing it to us.
What is the order dated today?
Take a picture of it.
We're videoing
I'm going to give you
it.
this whole order once we get the child. We need Caleb. Regarding what? You've never even told me my
You haven't
allegations,
told us our
ma'am.
allegations. We have an attorney contacting you.
We've talked.
No,
Okay. No,
we definitely have. I just talked to your attorney. Like I told him,
with him as well.
this is a signed court order by a judge. Nobody has a say-so in it. Only the judge now. So that's between your attorney and the court, county court. It's Judge Tracy Gray that signed it.
We have a court date on July 2nd, 9 a.m. Okay, where's my medically fragile child going to be taken?
Yeah.
He's going to be taken where he needs to be taken.
He's going to be taken where he needs to be taken. They wouldn't even tell the parents where they were taking the son. Folks, this is not China. This is in America. In Texas. The parents had no clue what the allegations were. You heard that, now this was in June 20th. They took the child, and there was not even a court date until July 2nd. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never heard of an emergency removal where you're going to just take a 4-year-old child, a special needs child, for several weeks. And I'm going to try to unpack this for you guys in as much of a chronological fashion as I can, because this is this is absurd. So following that, and it happened just the way I described it, in April, the parents complained about a doctor in the hospital. The hospital supposedly had 45 days to vet the complaint. On day 46, CPS is going to these people's house. It began with them leaving a card. The Pardos got their attorney to contact CPS. They were supposed to be working some arrangement out. But lo and behold, shockingly to the parents, armed officers in CPS standing outside their door saying, they called him Caleb. That's his official name, but he goes by Drake. Okay. And removed him. So at the initial hearing, CPS admitted in court that they had violated the law concerning the familial arrangements, and they were attempting to get the Pardos to admit in court that they were guilty of medical child abuse and personally having severe mental and health problems in order to get their child back. The judge went berserk on them in court. Said that, what? That's not a condition. There's something called due process of law in this country. Not only that, when the representative from CPS was asked on the stand under oath whether they had complied with CPS's own rules and with state and federal law to remove the child, they admitted that they had not complied. So they admitted under oath that they removed this boy from his home in violation of the law. Oh my goodness. Then, there's more. There was a subsequent hearing on August 2nd, where Ashley and Daniel Pardo requested emergency intervention by the 5th Court of Appeals in Dallas after their son, Drake, was illegally taken from them by CPS. Now, here's the thing. Drake is still in the custody of CPS. Right now, as I'm speaking, the parents have to submit to supervised visitations for their own child. Right now. In spite of the fact that CPS admitted on the stand that they did not follow the rules and follow the law, the court still didn't order the child to be released. Yeah. In addition to that, I mean, this is this is wild, man. This is wild. After the dialogue commenced between CPS and the Pardo's attorney, and they had not come to an agreement, one of the requirements was that CPS develop a plan of action, including the parents. But they didn't do that. And they upgraded the circumstance from just being a dialogue about Drake's case to elevating it to an emergency circumstance solely because the parents didn't agree with what CPS was suggesting. Folks, this is crazy. Then in a court hearing, when Daniel and Ashley were trying to get their son back, CPS argued, in this, I want you to hear this and feel this, because this is in America, folks. CPS actually made the argument that the Pardos, the parents, don't really have anything to complain about because young Drake was receiving the same medical care in CPS's custody as he would have been receiving if he was at home with his parents. Now, if that doesn't show you how callous our government can be toward the rights of parents, as if all a child needs is the same medicine being distributed and dispensed. So you have no idea how the young boy could be better off in his home where he grew up with his parents than being in government custody? This is insane. This is insane. This is insane. I explained this before, but I'll reiterate it again because it's worth reiterating. CPS first made contact with the Pardo family on June 7th when they left the business card at the Pardo home on their door. 2 weeks later, they became a little frustrated because after repeated and unsuccessful attempts by the Pardo family and their attorney to obtain information about the case, CPS suddenly on its own declared it an emergency and got an order to remove the child from the home. Now, when they got the doctor from the children's hospital on the stand that normally worked with CPS, the doctor was shocked that CPS had upgraded this case to emergency status because she said there was no reason why we could not have worked this out with Drake being in the home with his parents. But folks, this is what happens when you have unchecked government authority and it's laden down by bureaucracy. And we have a society that is callous toward how important it is for children to be with their families. This is kidnapping. And I don't care if it's done by the government. And I'm telling you, all of you out there who are listening to me, some of you may be opponents to the Second Amendment. This is why we have a Second Amendment. Because when government goes too far, who is going to hold them accountable? And I would love to tell you that this is just an isolated incident, but folks, it's not. If you dare get crossways with the medical establishment in this country, look out. Look out. Look out. Drake is homeschooled by his parents. The thing that sparked all of this is that his parents dared to question the judgment of a doctor. And now they ended up with a CPS case opened. Under oath, the doctor who was working with CPS had to admit she never even saw Drake in person. Never saw him in person. CPS had to admit before they went to pick the boy up from his house, they had never met the parents. They had never talked to the boy. Yet they were going to remove him from his house. Now, there are state legislators that are working with the Pardo family to try to resolve this, and their attorneys have filed an emergency appeal to the Fifth Circuit Court, the Fifth Court of Appeals in Texas, in the state court system. And they have made requests that if the appellate court grants it, Drake could be released immediately. But the next hearing is weeks away. Right now, he is still in CPS custody. Still in CPS custody. I mean, the list of things that were violated, it's outstanding. For example, the doctor admitted on the stand that she had never seen or met Drake or his parents. She admitted on the stand she had no firsthand knowledge of Drake's medical conditions. She admitted on the stand that the concerns listed in her affidavit were all speculative and she could not confirm them or rule them out without speaking to the parents, which was a step that she had not taken. Well, how in the world are you going to move somebody's child from their home if you haven't done any of this stuff? She admitted that her concerns were not an emergency. She admitted this doctor, because the point is CPS made this decision for emergency removal on their own. The doctor admitted that she had not requested that Drake be removed from his home and only wanted CPS to facilitate a meeting with the family on June 10th to help address any concerns that she might have had as a doctor. But CPS took it upon themselves to secure an emergency order to remove the child from the home. The CPS caseworker and her supervisor admitted on the stand that CPS had never talked to or even seen Drake, his parents, family members, neighbors, or any doctors who had firsthand knowledge of Drake's condition before they appealed for the emergency order. They never conducted any background investigation, never pursued multiple opportunities to resolve the issue without removal. Even admitted that they had intentionally not informed the family of the June 10th meeting that was requested by the Children's Hospital doctor, which provided the foundation for them to ask for an emergency removal. They wanted an emergency removal because the parents didn't show up at the meeting on June 10th. The parents said, how can we show up at the meeting for June 10th? And you didn't tell us about it. And CPS said, well, yeah, but you guys were being difficult. That's why we didn't tell you about it. And you're going to remove my child? Oh, no. This ain't going down like that. I hope the Pardos not only get Drake, but sue the state of Texas for everything they can get. Because this is ridiculous. And this is what happens when we have a government that does not view the parental-child relationship with the esteem that it should.
So when people first hear about MediShare, they have questions, some really good questions, starting with the obvious. What is it? Well, MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. It's not health insurance. It's a different way of doing things, which leads us to the next question. Why do people do this? Why do they become MediShare members? Here are two of the biggest reasons. Number one, people feel good about it. They're not trapped in a plan that makes them pay for things they don't believe in. They know their money is going to help people. And the second reason, people save a lot of money. Maybe you've heard us mention the typical family saves about $500 a month switching to MediShare. And one more big question, does it work? The answer is yes, 1,000 times yes, or 400,000 times, since that's how many MediShare members there are, and they've shared over $2 billion in medical expenses. So easy to find out right now how MediShare can work for you. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE, 833-44-BIBLE.
Protests in Hong Kong. This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. The prophet Micah wrote, "Woe to those who scheme iniquity. They covet fields and then seize them, and houses and take them away." The small territory of Hong Kong is experiencing the ever-increasing grip of communist China. Once a British colony with Western-style freedoms, Hong Kong was handed back to China in 1997 under the auspices of one country, two systems. But big government always wants more control. Let this be a lesson for Americans as we consider promises from the left of equality, safety, and security, which inexorably lead to the loss of individual liberties. Hear more at thechristianworldview.org, and then tune in this weekend for another topic that will sharpen your worldview.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
Fox News Commentary with Todd Starnes.
Hello, Americans. Just how safe is your family? That story next. A Montgomery County, Maryland woman is lucky to be alive. She was raped, nearly strangled to death, and police say the suspect is an illegal immigrant. In the past month, at least 4 illegals have been arrested in Montgomery County, Maryland on rape charges. 4 innocent American lives forever scarred by the most evil of deeds. One just 11 years old, the other 14 years old. And in a separate case, authorities released an accused rapist, even though ICE agents had placed a hold on the suspect. Crimes that could have been prevented. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Montgomery County, Maryland is a sanctuary county, a place that provides safe harbor for illegals. And it seems to me the elected leaders in Montgomery County, Maryland ought to face some sort of criminal charges for knowingly putting law-abiding citizens at risk. I'm Todd Starnes.
That's your Fox News Commentary.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and 1-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. We will open the phone lines this segment, so if you'd like to join the program to weigh in on what's going on, we started off the show by discussing the centrality of the Great Commission to the mission of the Christian life. The Great Commission is the mission. I'll say it again. The Great Commission is the mission, and we cannot allow ourselves to be dissuaded. Secondarily, we discussed the horrendous case of the Pardo family, where the Children's Protective Services, CPS in Texas, removed the child under false pretenses and all kinds of deception that amount to nothing more than kidnapping. Had an American citizen done that to somebody's child, they will be arrested. But because it's the government, we just stand by and let it happen. And I want to emphasize that the Pardo family is fighting back, but they still don't have their son. Their son is still in the custody of the government. And it is outrageous for that to be the case. So if you'd like to join the program, you're welcome to do so. The number to call is 589-8840. The number to call again is 888-589-8840. And as the callers are making their way into the corner, man, you ever heard the saying, with friends like these, who needs enemies? Some of that seems to apply to the Biden household. It seems that an inability to communicate well happens to be a familial trait for the Bidens. Jill Biden, the wife of former vice president and the current frontrunner for the Democratic presidential nomination, Joe Biden, she was speaking to a group of Democratic voters, and she was discussing her husband's prospects for the nomination. You're not going to believe what she said about her very own husband. Please play clip number 1.
I know that not all of you are committed to my husband, and I respect that, but I want you to think about your candidate, his or her electability, and who's going to win this race. He's leading all the other candidates. So yes, your candidate might be better on, I don't know, healthcare than Joe is. But you've got to look at who's going to win this election. And maybe you have to swallow a little bit and say, okay, I personally like so-and-so better. But your bottom line has to be that we have.
The end was a little bit muffled, but to what she said at the end is, your bottom line has to be, can they beat Trump? So that's your case for your husband? That is how you're going to persuade people to support your husband? I may not be a rocket scientist, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn not too long ago. Oh yeah, Teresa, she did say swallow. We're gonna let that pass. Yeah, she did. We're not gonna spend any time on that. But she literally said this was her pitch. This is her pitch. All right, you ready, guys? This is how we're gonna get our next nominee. We need to think. I mean, you may have your favorite candidate, and he may be better than Joe on, not a big thing, just a small little issue like healthcare. Just an insignificant side issue. But what you have to think is electability. Boy, that sure will make you want to go out, run out and vote for Joe right now, doesn't it? I mean, imagine it. I was a guy to do Jason. I'll do myself. So imagine this would never happen. But just imagine. Imagine my wife tried to appeal to you to listen to this program by saying, think about your favorite radio show host. And, you may like your host. And they may be better than Abe at, talking. They may be better than Abe at talking. But, you have to think about whether or not others will like him. That certainly doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement. Folks, the Democrats are in trouble. This is their front runner. They can't even get Joe Biden's wife to passionately support him. How in the world do they think he's going to appeal to the American people? This is amazing to me. These people, I guess Joe isn't the only Biden who's going to choose truth over facts. These people are outrageous. I would be rather upset if my wife offered me this milquetoast endorsement. This is amazing. It's like they know, man, we can't beat Trump. It's like they know it. And like, if the best that you have is a person that you're admitting that there are other candidates that are better than, you're in a bad way. And I guess that's why we see Liawata coming up. That's amazing to me. She said, you just have to go with Joe. Nobody else can beat Trump. That's just, this is amazing. I would, I don't know if the Trump campaign is listening. I got a little birdie told me that someone in the White House listens to this program. So I don't know. We'll see. But somebody better cut that as audio and be ready to air that should Joe Biden get the nomination. I mean, Joe Biden's wife don't even believe in him. I mean, she's like Rocky's wife before Rocky shows up in Russia. Rock, you can't win. What are you doing, Rock? You can't win. I'm going to call her Jill Balboa. She's telling Joe Biden, you can't win, Joe. There are other candidates that are better than you, but you can't win. This is remarkable. This is remarkable. And getting back to, briefly, to the Drake Pardo situation, I was not in the courtroom, so I cannot tell you this by my own observations of the proceedings. But what I can tell you is that there are some who fancy themselves as the elite among us, some of them wear black robes, who have an aversion towards homeschool families, especially those who do not bow down and accept the recommendations of physicians as gospel. So I have a sneaky suspicion that in spite of all of the evidence that showed CPS violated the law, they did not know what they were doing. And even the children's medical center doctor was like, whoa, we didn't need to take the child from the home. They allowed Drake to be removed because they do not trust homeschooling Christian parents who do not worship the medical profession. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. To the phone lines we go. First to Texas, where Kathy is on the line. Kathy, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
No, thank you. My heart is bleeding. As I was listening to the story, I'm from East Texas, and I'm like, yep, Children's Medical Center, Dallas, been there, done that. And then when you start talking about a feeding tube, that is exactly our case.
Wow.
My daughter, this happened 4 years ago. I ended up against medical advice, taking her feeding tube out, putting her in, expulling us, and putting her in a program where now it's showing that she has bulimia and anorexia. I had to get a lawyer to fight them to have her removed from and let her come home. Now, the difference is that from then to here, it's been 4 years. CPS was involved, and they would not touch it. What has happened in 4 years that all of a sudden they want to get into people's personal medical business? Other than Trump winning the White House, what has happened in 4 years where many cases they didn't want to get involved, and now all of a sudden it is as quick as they could jump?
Wow. And so you are in East Texas, in a similar region where this all transpired.
Families with medical needs children not only already have severe emotional burden, financial burden, this is making it that much harder for them. And the state, how much money are they wasting on this when it could have just been looked into? But that's my question for you, sir, is in 4 years, what has happened to where all of a sudden families are being attacked through medical means? Thank you, sir.
Good call, Kathy. Thank you for your call and your comments. I want to try to squeeze more calls in because we have callers apparently that this is not only not an isolated incident, but callers are having an experience with these areas. So next we have Sid from Texas. Sid, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Hi.
Hi.
Wanted to tell you, my husband was a police officer. He's a retired police officer. He's been out on calls with CPS and had bad experience and told one lady she better get in her car and leave because she was in the process of trying to assault the lady, the mother of a child, and he told her she better go now. Our governor is very big on pushing CPS. I don't know how much he knows about all of this, but he kind of has given CPS free rein where they think they have all of the power in the world, and they do at this point. I worked with a girl that they did the same thing to her. They took her daughter away from her. She doesn't have the money to get her back. She didn't have the money to get an attorney because you have to have a lot of money. She called attorneys, and they said, you don't have enough money to pay me to go to court with CPS. I personally know an attorney here in East Texas that does work for families, and she ends up not getting hardly any money for it, but it's because she does this. She helps families try and get their kids back because CPS has gone completely, just crazy.
Thank you for your call, Sid. And I want to be clear here. My goal here is not to ignore the fact that I know from my experience with the criminal justice system that there are some circumstances where CPS has done a great job, but there are more and more cases that are coming to light, more and more cases to where it seems like we're moving toward having our own types of circumstances where you have, Charlie Gard type situations here in America. And part of the reason why I wanted to share this is to bring attention to what's happening right here in our own country. But back to the phone lines. We'll go next to Oklahoma, where Susan is on the line. Susan, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's an honor to talk to you, Mr. Hamilton. I'm calling about a couple of things. I recall years ago that I heard that Hitler, one of the first things he did was to remove the homeschool families. He attacked the homeschool families. And there's the Homeschool Legal Defense Association that will protect people if they join. And years ago, a person could even get a lifetime membership. And
You
also
still can.
homeschoolers.
You still can now.
Pardon?
You can still get lifetime memberships now.
Well, so I think that's a really good deal, and I think the homeschoolers in Texas ought to band together like the homeschoolers did in California for some attack on homeschoolers. This is an attack, and I'm hoping that the homeschoolers can get out and protest.
Well said, Susan. Now, I will say this. The Texas Homeschool Association, THSC, is working with the Pardos. They are a member of the Texas Homeschool Association, and they are helping with the entire process with them, and as well as disseminating information that's going on with the case. I know they sent out an update just today concerning this case, so that is happening. But it's just a sad state when we see how necessary it is for these types of things to happen, to where you have to protect yourselves against government overreach. I mean, this is where we are. Back to the phone lines. We'll go back to Texas, where Gary is on the line. Gary, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. I'm calling from the occupied territories of Texas. And you can just, well, we're just like Palestine. We've been occupied. Apparently, used to be wars change boundaries, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So we're the occupied territories of Texas. Just ask La Raza. But anyway, this shows you what's happened when government bureaucrats get into control. And you want them in control of your health care? This is coming.
That's a good point. It's a good point. Gary's point is, if you think this is something, wait until the regressives pass Medicare for all. Wait until they pass Medicare for all. Jeff made the point. We see what's happening with CPS. What do you think will happen if we pass an expansion of red flag laws? I mean, folks, we need to wise up. We need to wise up. This is remarkable that this is happening here in the United States of America. Well, one of the things that has occurred in our country is that we don't understand that not the only, but the proper way to engage government is recognizing that government exists to be our servants. And so this is a perfect example as to why we need to make sure we are involved. So if you are in the area, I'd encourage you to do your own research and contact your local officials, because CPS is a state-run organization, and you let them know you heard about this story and that you find it to be absolutely unconscionable. And if we stand up, we will see things change. Thank you all for tuning in to the program today.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.